The giant squid is one of the world's most elusive animals that stays deep underwater. So when one of these washed up on a beach in South Africa, people were stunned. Now, the giant squid was found on the rocky shore of Scarborough Beach near Cape Town and was around 14 feet long. Experts are unsure how the squid died, but suggested it may have gotten stuck after venturing into the unusually shallow waters to feed. Now, what's crazy about this is that it was the second giant squid corpse to wash up in the area that year, after an 11.5 long specimen washed ashore around 6 miles away. Now, it's unclear if there is a common factor behind the squid's deaths, but it is kind of suspicious that they washed up around the same time. A giant white humpback whale was discovered to have been washed ashore on an Australian beach. Now, the creature was 33 feet long and was found by a local who was kayaking past a hidden beach in Victoria State. Surprisingly, the creature's body was pure white, which isn't normal at all. Now, despite the juvenile female's extremely rare color, experts don't think the dead humpback had albinoism, a genetic condition that stops animals from producing skin pigment, because it had patches of dark skin. Instead, the young whale might have had leucism, a genetic condition similar that affects some individual cells' ability to produce pigment and can cause patchy discoloration. It is also possible that most of the whale's outer skin fell off as it decomposed on the ocean surface, which revealed lighter skin underneath. Now, regardless, it's something that we've never really seen before, and it was shocking. The corpse of a mysterious beaked whale washed up on a northern California beach, and what was unusual was that it had wounds on its face and different scrape marks all over its body. Now, experts were unsure what had caused these injuries, how the whale died, or even which species this whale belonged to. The remains, which were measured to be around 16 feet long, were found on a beach at Jug Handle State Natural Reserve at Fort Bragg. Now, a team of scientists from the nearby Noyo Center for Marine Science recovered the body and took samples of the whale's blubber, organs, and skull for analysis. Now, scientists think there are around 24 species of beaked whale, but of those, only a few species have been properly studied. Now, they think the creature that washed ashore was a Hubb's beaked whale or a Stenger's beaked whale, but it could also be a ginkgo-tooth beaked whale or a pygmy beaked whale. Now, they still had to do more research to figure out which one this whale was. Then there was also figuring out what happened to it and why it had all these injuries. One possible cause of the whale's injuries is a vessel strike, as beaked whales, dolphins, and porpoises are among the marine animals that are most at risk of being hit by boats. A super rare shark called the Greenland shark washed up on a UK beach, and it could have been more than 100 years old. Yes, the Greenland shark was first spotted on the sand in Newland Harbour, Cornwall, but it washed back out to sea. The shark, which measured 13 feet long and weighed 628 pounds, was then rediscovered floating off the coast a couple days later and was hauled back to shore. Now, Greenland sharks are native to the Arctic and North Atlantic Oceans and are believed to be among the longest living animals in the world, capable of living to at least 272 years. Now, they don't become sexually mature until they're around 150 years old, and the size of this shark suggested that it was only around 100 years old. Pathologists later discovered evidence of meningitis, an inflammation of the protective membranes that cover the brain and spinal cord, which likely was the reason why the shark died and floated onto the beach. A gigantic sunfish discovered near a Portuguese island set a new world record for the heaviest bony fish ever recorded. Now, to be clear, the giant sunfish didn't actually wash ashore. It was found lifeless on the ocean surface just off the coast of Fail Island and the Azores, a group of islands in the North Atlantic Ocean. Now, locals brought it to shore, where it was discovered to be around 12 feet tall and around 11 feet long, and it weighed a hefty 6,049 pounds. Now, the previous world record for the heaviest bony fish ever was held by another giant sunfish caught in Japan in 1996, which weighed around 5,070 pounds. So this was a crazy find. In November 2024, a rare orfish washed up on a California beach. It was 10.8 feet long, and it is a mysterious deep-sea creature that's shaped like an eel. Now, we usually don't see them that often, as there are only 22 scientific recordings of the creatures washing up in California since 1901. We don't know too much about these animals, but what we do know is from studying their remains. Now, orfish are massive and elusive fish with reflective skin who reside reside in the ocean's depths all over the world. Sometimes called doomsday fish, they're described in Japanese folklore as harbingers of disaster. It's suspected they could even be the origin of the mythical sea serpents drawn throughout history on sailors' maps. So was this some sort of omen, or just a coincidence that it washed ashore? People on a beach in Oregon were shocked when they discovered a deep-sea anglerfish called a Pacific football fish. Now it looks like an alien-like creature as it's very black, had a gaping mouth, needle-sharp teeth, and an unnerving array of spikes across its body. Now this creature is so rarely seen that only 31 of them have ever been recorded. So this find was actually pretty cool. Now these fish live at depths of between 300 meters and 1,200 meters deep, and this part of the ocean is totally devoid of light, which is why the football fish has a strange appendage on the front of its head that looks a little bit like a feather duster. Now this is a bioluminescent lure that it uses to attract prey close enough that it can pounce and wolf them down. When a 15-foot-long sea monster washed up in Maine in July 2018, it had already decomposed so much that it was nearly unrecognizable. Now the large creature was about 15 feet long and 4 feet wide. It was at such an advanced stage of decomposition that beachgoer Chris Blair told New Center, Maine that it looked like a blob of something. Now at the time, several people who saw the carcass believed it was the remains of a whale, but experts were adamant that it was no marine mammal, it was a basking shark, the second largest shark species on the planet. Now it was estimated that the shark had been dead for several weeks before washing ashore, as the water off Maine was cold at that time of year, so the decomposition processes were slower. Now after this was reported, Public Works Department scooped the animal up with a bulldozer and they took it to a landfill to be buried. And in 2023, scientists were left baffled after several cannibalistic Twilight Zone creatures washed up on Oregon's beaches. Multiple Lancet fish, one of the ocean's largest fish that live about a mile below the surface, were found strewn across a 220-mile swath of the state's coastline. Yeah, no one is sure why they're washing ashore, the state parks department said, but not all of these creatures were washing up dead. At least one fish was found on the beaches still alive, and it was held back to the ocean and it swam off. Though these creatures can be found in shallow waters, their preferred habitat is in the Twilight Zone, which lies between 650 and 33,000 feet below the surface. The Lancet fish are not typically known to wander close to North American shorelines. Scientists theorize that the Lancets that are washing up could be suffering from injuries or are ill and can't swim efficiently. I am so glad that these creatures aren't around anymore because they are terrifying. The Hippertopus looks like a woodlouse, but it's actually part of a group known as sea scorpions. It was 6.5 feet long and is the heaviest arthropod. It roamed the earth about 388 to 304 million years ago, and it's been discovered that this creature wasn't an active predator. Instead, it fed by using its spine-covered forelimbs to rake through muddy substrates in search of small, tasty invertebrates. Now the crazy thing about this animal is that it lived primarily underwater, but some fossils suggest that it may have been capable of walking on land, and researchers aren't sure how they were able to survive this way. Some researchers think it may have been able to breathe for short periods of time while its gills remained wet, while others suspect it may have had a dual respiratory system. Now a creature like this who could be in the water and on land is a big no from me.